evening. I'm Chet Coppock. Welcome to a bona fide celebration we've titled Sportswriters Turn 500. No, that is not the collective age of the participants in the show known as the Sportswriters on TV. The number 500 represents the 500th edition of a show whose inaugural episode aired on SportsChannel Chicago way back on March 7th, 1987. On that first show, they discussed college basketball coaching and the upcoming tournament. And they've continued talking for 499 more programs, all through a fine haze of cigar smoke. Since that time, Rick Telander, Bill Jauss, Bill Gleason, Ben Bentley, new panelist Lester Munson had discussed, argued, debated, yelled, described, hollered, reminisced, interrupted, filibustered, quipped, harangued, laughed about most every topic related to sports and the world at large. Along the way, they've managed to stop arguing long enough to pick up a Midwest Emmy, a Cable Ace nomination, great reviews and loyal viewers in 40 million households across the country. So now, while I try to light this stogie, let's begin our look back at some of the highlights of those 500 discussions by seeing how the sports writers have addressed three topics refined folks are never supposed to talk about: sex, politics, and religion.
Did anybody say anything when George Foreman paraded around the ring in the Olympics?
Yeah, I thought it was stupid.
Why was it stupid?
Because there's too much of that.
Why?
Athletic competition is competition.
I got thrills when I saw this man parading around the ring with an American flag.
You ask a question and then interrupt the
answer.
answer.
I'm not interrupting, but you say well, go ahead, argue with me about it.
Athletics is supposed to be competition between individuals, not nations. I don't choke up with glory when they play the national anthem of any country.
You're hard-hearted.
An athlete, I couldn't stand the Star-Spangled Banner. I mean, because literally I could barely stand. You're so cranked up, you're so ready to go, and you've got to stand there, put your hand over your heart or your helmet at your side, or if it's a basketball game, you're moving back and forth. You're supposed to stand perfectly still. What it has become is just tradition, and a lot of people would go to games, and if you didn't play the Star-Spangled Banner, they'd miss that opportunity to get to their seats, to take the last trip to the John. Personally, I don't think people even hear it anymore.
Would you keep moving if they changed it to the Beatles? Let me hold your hand.
Wait a minute, Ben. How about the mighty television industry thinks so much of the national anthem that it cuts away all the time because it'll lose
Where
viewers.
Does it cut away?
I've watched ball games.
I've watched ball games
Very seldom have you seen.
And I heard the announcer say, "Just a moment, we're going to our national anthem."
Yeah, we're going to a commercial.
No, our national anthem.
They don't, Ben.
You live on a dream world. You're watching cartoons.
What was that famous short story by Alan Salito, The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner?
Yeah.
Do we want a lonely president? Doesn't Dukakis seem a little lonely?
Most presidents are lonely.
On the other hand, do you want
it's a lonely job,
Yeah, most presidents are lonely.
Do you want a first baseman, a guy who pulls a hidden ball trick and stuff?
Or what about a guy? Do you want someone in the White House who chews tobacco?
We had a few of those.
Baseball players chew tobacco.
We had a few of
those. Doesn't it disturb you guys that this flag has come to represent the hawk view? And it doesn't any longer represent those of us.
No.
It does.
Bill, the hawk view prevails at the moment.
That doesn't mean that those of us who aren't in the hawk camp can't express
you're
our
arguing
views.
Two different things.
Yes. But it's not two different things. We're talking about low cars. That's one incident, but it could happen.
Let the flag represent whatever you want it to represent. The point here is wearing it. No, the point is not the flag. The point is the wearing of it on a uniform. Do we wear it during peacetime? Do we wear it? And I don't think this war, being in favor of the war, is necessarily being hawkish. This is a legal war that is a United Nations consensus mandated thing. So I don't like just throwing the word hawk and dove out here. Now, if he doesn't want to wear a flag, that may have nothing to do with the war.
Even I admittedly, I'm a radical Democrat. I'll never change. I would have gone.
I've always wondered what...
Well, we're not discussing...
yes, we are discussing politics.
Wait a minute, let's hear from him first.
Wait.
Let's wait a minute.
That's your department.
Any attempt to say there's no politics in this...
Now, wait a minute. You'll answer me back later.
Now, Bush said that Magic came to only one of the meetings. And I've heard that Louis Sullivan, the head of... the head doctor for the United States.
Surgeon
General called Magic Johnson 40 times and got no response.
And Clinton said that when Bush addressed the issue last night, that was the longest he's ever dwelt on the subject.
It became a political thing very quickly. So you see, Bill, how the athletes not only are using the political arena to benefit themselves,
but it works both ways.
But vice versa. So,
from presidential politics to an even bigger topic, the man upstairs. Don't tell me this program doesn't cover all bets. You've got a Jew, a pair of Catholics, a Protestant, and a Methodist. So the question becomes, is sports bigger than religion?
I have a little bit of a problem because I'm tired of watching extra points or watching, critical field goals, and I see this darn yellow thing there that says John 3:16, which you talk about getting a nerd to something. People just expect to see it. They don't think it's an important game unless you see that stupid sign up.
First of all, extra points are very boring.
Hey,
Secondly, there are a lot of people on Earth who think this is a very exciting message.
Yeah, I pay very little attention to extra points, so I don't see that very often.
Someone who is going to extol their freedom to make a statement can say, John 3:16. I happen to be Jewish, or I happen to be atheist, or I happen to be an Arab, or I happen to be Muslim, or whatever.
Pro-Iraqi.
All right,
that's all right.
How about this?
That's what makes this country great. You can get out and say unpopular
Jauss, you
things.
brought up...
I have seen fighters prior to going into the ring, and after the announcement is made, they cross themselves. What's wrong with that? What is wrong
Nothing,
with
because
that?
it's obvious what their prayers are for.
Oh, come on.
For their well-being.
Don't get into that.
No, he's right.
It's obvious what they're praying for. They're praying that they don't get their brains scrambled, or hopefully praying that their opponent doesn't get his brain scrambled. Rick is talking about prayer, that a guy misses a field goal. That's blasphemy. That's irreligious.
He has the Bible on his side. He can go to the Bible, or you can, and Bill can,
You
Ben
can make
can.
any case you want by picking out of context.
But this is literal. I'm not talking about the fundamentalists reading their own opinion into it. I'm talking about, Bill, reading it literally. And you can find these references.
Bill, you know what else you can find in the
wait a
Bible?
minute. Hold it. You don't have to be a fundamentalist to have this viewpoint. There are a lot of people all over this country who feel just as he does. Newly gathered statistics in the 1900s on two key yardsticks of human interest, financial and personal involvement, show religion ahead of sports. Latest figures show money...
Is there any difference?
Latest figures show money contributed to religion in 1992, Rick, total $56.7 billion. That's more than 14 times the $4 billion spent on our three major sports, Major League Baseball, football, and basketball. And as attendance, Rick, attendance. Now, I don't know if you're going to church with your children, but religion totaled $5.6 billion in 1993. This is based...
A lot of season ticket holders.
I started to think about this after Jordan's first game when he returned, and he had that big press conference, and he said, I am very embarrassed the way some people have treated me like a god. I'm just a... And then that thought kept bouncing around to the point where I wonder whether sport has replaced religion in some of our lives. In a culture, in many cultures, for centuries, people have built pyramids and huge cathedrals and temples and churches to commemorate their gods, to whom they prayed. Now it seems that the magnificent sport palace is the thing that we revere.
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6, read it for me, Bill.
Verse 30. Men do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy his soul when it is hungry.
So if Peyton's soul is hungry and Pippen's soul is hungry, they will make their
And you're
steals.
forgetting a fella named Michael Jordan who can sweep that ball away,
Michael
too.
Jordan is
Yes,
not bad.
Sex. It sells. Check out the Dallas Cowboys, their sidelines, the girls in hot pants. Now, as we continue with the Sportswriters Turn 500, keep your eyes on Ben Bentley. Watch how Ben begins to squirm. Watch just how uncomfortable Ben Bentley is as sex is mentioned on a rather frequent basis.
I was just in Dallas, going through there, and then the head of the cheerleader says, "We are wholesome ladies with a capital L." And I thought she meant L like from wholesome, but I was laughing hysterically. What is an all-American girl? Is it somebody who wears one of these little halter things and these little white shorts and white boots and walks around and flaunts their body? I mean, when I look at them, I want to tell you,
Calling them all-American girls, really.
That's a bunch of
No,
baloney.
no.
Ben?
That's nice. They're the all-American girls.
Ben, the all-American teams is what they are.
Wait a minute. You go to college football, you've got your cheerleaders, high school. They start in grade school nowadays.
That's right. That's right.
Find one that wears hot pants, Joe. They're sex objects, and that's offensive.
At issue here is the philosophical question: should such a job be taken from him or her because of his or her choice in sexual relationships between consenting adults. And I think, no. Personally,
I would answer.
no one should lose a job for that.
Quite clearly, no. I wonder, I mean, if it doesn't affect your job, you shouldn't really have, there should be very few conditions.
However,
of getting
an
fired.
umpire could be in a touchy situation. What if there's a close play at the plate? One
And
of
the umpire's his boyfriend.
one lover is sliding in.
Am I right? I would say it's none of anybody's business that if there's a great athlete, a great tennis player, and happens to be involved in sexual preferences, as we point out here, whose business is it? I'm interested in what a ball player does on the field.
Wait a minute,
That's
Ben.
what I'm...
I agree, Ben, but there's one point we're missing here, at least if we're going to take Margaret Court at her, understand her comments. She's not talking about role models. She's not talking about the kids watching TV. She's talking about the other young women on the tour. So,
well, yes, but that's the relationship.
No, she's also talking about
Martina
little kids.
as role model to the younger players on the tour. However, I do not think that if she came down with AIDS that the public would say Martina had it coming. I think if she got up, because she'd give the same kind of talk that Johnson gave, except she would be much more dynamic
Yeah,
and
I'm inclined
aggressive.
to agree with you.
And the
But
public,
she's right on the second point, isn't she?
which was...
The double standard that the man can sleep around and it's condoned, and if a
Joss,
woman...
I'm not so sure. I had mixed feelings about this. I agree with her. Of course, there's a double standard. Martina is one of the few tennis players who has openly admitted that she is gay. And I agree with Bill that if she came down with a terrible disease, I think we'd be very, our hearts would go out to her. Just as I don't think we abandoned her last year. She went through this ugly divorce with her woman, or whatever you want to call it, woman. People didn't abandon her, and that would be the wonderful Sports Illustrated bathing suit issue for which Lester Munson is entirely responsible. We're going to lay this on him. Now, here, of course, this is a celebration of the swimming fashions which you should go out and purchase for your wife, loved one, girlfriend, daughter, whatever. And this, of course, is something that everyone will, I'm sure, will be wearing.
Oh, that'll be popular
This
on
will be
North
popular.
Avenue Beach.
It's called the Sheet and Get It Wet. A couple there, and I guess I can give their names, Melvin Hoffman and Regina Chatien, it's a very pretty name, were found guilty of having sex during a baseball game, which we went back in our books.
Guilty or fortunate?
The one thing the box score doesn't tell us, and some box scores do tell us, is the temperature that night. Was there a blanket involved? Was it too warm
August
for
29th.
a blanket in Los Angeles?
Was it Nino blowing?
The Dodgers did rally for 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th, so I don't think that's when it happened.
No,
We
that
have
might
to
have been
narrow it
led
down.
to the excitement. The
Right.
carryover from the athletic
Right.
excitement to the sexual excitement may have just been a natural.
The first 5 innings were scoreless on the field, suggesting that the score may have occurred.
Thank you, Mr. Double Entendre.
sex is important.
felony?
Sex is big. Sex is beautiful.
Well,
Even
So
if
it can
stand-
never be a misdemeanor.
And remember, that we always hear from the TV announcers and the radio announcers, if you're scoring at home.
Next up, our guys go fishing. They pay tribute to the old Romans' Diamond Palace, the original Comiskey Park, and they visit with the mayor as the sports writers turn 500.
I know every one of them is mentioned 3 times in the Old Testament. But I want to congratulate you guys on your 500th show. I didn't think you'd get that far. Actually, it's very enjoyable, and I think you guys are great, and keep up the great work.
I want to congratulate all of you. I might forget your names, or I might mispronounce your names, so I'm not going to individualize. But I know 500's a magic number, and you've had 500 great shows. But don't let that bother you. You only got 500 more great shows to do. Do them well, as you always have. And I catch the show as often as I can, and I really love it. I really do.
Every sports section, of course, always features an outdoor writer, although none of the sports writers has ever written an outdoor column. There was one day, however, when they all tried to catch a fish.
must talk to fish, and you're an expert. You talk to a fish.
You talk to a restaurant.
What do you say to them?
Well, you sit there and you say, won't hurt you. I won't hurt you. Come just a little closer. We won't hurt you. Fisher, you look wonderful. We will not hurt you. Come just a little.
Benny, that may work in the singles bar, but it's not going to work out here. Ordinarily, the fish are down here, but things are a little slow today. So, Rick, let's just imbibe until the fishes come along.
Will you play this for me, Jauss?
Yeah, come on, you guys. Lunch is out there.
Yeah, but I have never seen one of the fishermen ask for a light.
He's going right in after her.
Well, I think that's thoughtless.
Well,
What if we were torpedoed, Bentley, right now?
Well, I went through that, but let me ask you this. Have you...
You went through a torpedoing?
Yes, I went through torpedoing, but I won't get into that because it'll sound like I'm bragging.
Hold the dum-diddy-doo, snapping her fingers and shuffling her feet, singing doo-wah-diddy-diddy-dum-diddy-doo. She looked good, looked fine, she looked fine, looked great, she looked good, she looked fine, then I nearly lost my mind.
It's sort of like our predictions. We predicted that we would catch fish. Everybody said we would catch fish, but we are wrong every week. Every week we're wrong, and we're wrong again.
By the way, let the record show that was the only time the captain of that particular boat was ever shut out, ever came back without a single catch. Meanwhile, Charles Comiskey, legendary ballpark, 35th and Shields, 35th and the Dan Ryan, the sports writers, a very special moment, a farewell to the original Comiskey Park.
Well, Jauss, I go to you as part of our special Comiskey farewell with not your earliest Comiskey memory, but your most vivid Comiskey recollection.
Out in left field, a Yankee rookie named Jim Leyritz camped under a fly ball in the 8th inning. The score was 0-0, and the Sox had not made a hit. Leyritz dropped the ball for a 3-run error. The next hitter hit one to center, and Jesse Barfield dropped the ball for an error. The White Sox won the game 4-0 without getting a hit. They were, and still are, the hitless wonders.
Right directly in back of us, second base.
Not during baseball games.
There was some of those, too.
Yeah. But directly in back of us, second base, the ring was pitched. That was the night that I saw Joe Louis knock out Jim Braddock for the heavyweight championship of the world.
This is my heritage, Ben. I love this place. It's in my blood, and it's the baseball palace of the world, and I want to say, see you later.
And now, gentlemen, how about all of us taking one last stroll on the grass so we can say goodbye?
Wonderful, Ben.
Sounds okay to me, Ben.
I want to go out there where Wilbur Wood used to work.
Did you bring your glove with you? Okay, how about one last card?
The heavyweights, the luminaries, a number of them have joined the sports writers. Let's go back in time.
Let's say the people going to make the decision came to you and they said, Harold Washington, you're a Chicago sports fan, you have a lot of background, you're the mayor of the city, we're going to let you pick the site for the Bears Stadium. Where would you put it?
You're going to cause me to lose some votes right here.
Would you be active in trying to get, say, black kids to come to the new, what's going to be called, Comiskey Park? I mean, they live right across the freeway, and...
They've always been at Comiskey Park. What are you talking about? I mean, what do you mean they don't go to Comiskey Park? They don't go to Cubs Park. What do you mean they don't go?
Well, the games I go to...
Good. You sit up in the back seats up there. You're
no,
right.
I don't. Right. No, I sit behind one of the obstructed view seats.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying...
No, this is not an attack. I'm just saying...
Then you should buy some tickets and give them out to some kids. How about that, Rick? I mean, let's not...
I'm not a politician. I don't make that much money.
No, I doubt it.
I must say you are not a hypocrite because you're rarely seen in Wrigley Field.
Oh, I've been there.
What?
Describe it. Describe it. What's on the walls in the outfield?
No, I've been there a number of times. I'm a Cub fan too.
Can I ask you a semi-serious
Now there's
question?
a political lie. If ever I heard one.
You know, it shows how ridiculous this firing the manager is. I mean, a few years ago, Sparky Anderson, baseball had passed him by, remember? It was a young man's game. He didn't know, the Tigers were a sorry team, and they needed some young blood, and there were lots of talk for Sparky's scalp. And now he's brilliant.
He got smart in the
yeah,
last
it's
few
amazing,
years.
isn't it? How they,
What if they ran game shows that way?
I'm not sure.
I got to ask George, since you're here, could you do just a touch of the Superfan stuff? I mean, anything? Can you give us a prediction?
Yeah. No, I love yours. I'm going to steal that one, but Bulls in 3. But
tree.
Bulls in 3. I don't have my mustache.
You don't. You're doing good. Don't stop. Go ahead.
I saw you a while ago in Bleacher Bums. You know the play?
Sure.
Now, there were just, it only seated a couple hundred people, whatever. Do you do that because you're a sports fan? I mean, that's a play about sitting in the bleachers at Wrigley Field.
Well, I did it for a couple reasons. Joey Montaigne, who was one of the originators of the show, was going to mount it again, and he was going to direct it. He's a very dear friend of mine and a nice guy and a real hard guy to say no to. And plus, I enjoyed the play when I seen it the first time around, and I knew it was going to be a lot of fun to do. But it was one of the hardest plays I ever did because you had to know when the strikes were coming, when to cheer, when
You're
not to
looking out at
cheer,
the
and all
crowd,
of that.
and there's nothing happening.
There's nothing happening, so it's all going on in your mind. And we had cues, and if you missed a cue, you went from the first inning to like the 7th inning, and you were steady. We did that one night. We missed that.
So the play was real short that night?
It was real small.
Remember, in most sports movies, it's the score. Do they win on the last second shot?
Those guys...
It has nothing to do with the characters. This movie reverses that. The players are more important. The people are more important than the score.
And you always like that, the human side.
I like things I haven't seen before. I've seen so many, last shot endings in sports movies. That isn't what sports are about, and you know it. You don't cover, and the kick for you guys isn't covering who wins or loses. It's the drama of the people. Isn't that it?
Is Michael Jordan hurt or not? No. He's holding out for more dough, I'm telling you.
Who are those guys? That's a great show. Rick Telander, and then from the 3 Chicago area sports writers. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they sit around and smoke, talk about
they're great. But I can never get the other. One's from the Chicago Tribune, one's from the South Bend, the Eagle, Beacon, something. They're all
from Chicago.
Yeah, it's very, very entertaining.
I'm going to take them camping with me one day, those 3 guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your set. I may be green.
By the way, quick story. Sportswriters had heard through the grapevine that actor Jack Nicholson was also a big fan of the show. A few years back, Nicholson comes to Chicago to film scenes for his movie, Hoffa. Jack's office contacted with an invitation to join the guys at the table. The response from Jack's office, Mr. Nicholson is flattered, but he doesn't do television shows. The sportswriter's response, great. Neither do we. When we come back, we'll take a look at what transpires at the table when that story on the sports page suddenly becomes a story on the front page as the Sportswriters Turn 500 continues.
This is on 500 shows. It's not easy to do. Nice going. I'm proud of you. Keep up the good work.
Hey, gang, it's Doug Coach, and I want to wish you a happy 500 show, and I want to tell you, just keep smoking them.
It may well be the most memorable sports writers' moments have occurred when the guys have discussed issues that transcend sports. Those moments are memorable because Bill Gleason, Bill Jauss, Rick Telander, Lester Munson are more than just sports writers. Pretty gosh darn keen observers with knowledge that can link the games that men and women play to a bigger world. And most importantly, they know that there are moments in time when jocks and scores, really, when you get right down to it, don't matter a gosh darn bit.
I think that the very fact that sports isn't, in the universal sense, important, gives it more importance than anything else, almost anything else, because this baseball, football, the basketball, the glorious sport, this is why we have, to an extent, we have revolutions. This is why we try to get democracy. This is why we try to have people whose lives, who can live good, decent lives and have a high standard of living. And therefore, sports, like art, like music, it is the trappings the extraneous part of life that makes life worth living. And I wish that those announcers would have said that. They felt almost, they sound like they're almost embarrassed to be announcing that baseball game. I think they should have reveled in it and said,
hey, here's what China can develop if these students get a chance. If they stop
and here's
massacring
what
them.
they could aspire to.
We're talking about peace. Peace is staring us right in the face, gentlemen. It's shocking. It's beautiful. If we have peace and don't have to spend half our national product building bombs and bombers,
Peace is beautiful. When
that
you
means
use the
more.
word peace, that's beautiful.
That's beautiful, and it means more
But I'm not
recreational
enthused
time.
about.
Oh, I don't care about your enthusiasm. It's
Well,
a
You don't care.
Yeah.
We got to face
A lot of people do, Bill.
running and jumping, doing the long jump and going to war are two different things. I'm talking, and Rick and I are talking, I believe, about reunification of the sport team in the Olympics.
But what you said, what you introduced your conversation with, and you were right. This is a world story. It affects the world, and I just want to say, if the Germanys are reunited, you can be sure they will march again, and that's what. And then what happens to sport?
Let's hope they just march in the Olympics.
I didn't know what to think about it, whether the games should be played or not. They're obviously trivial, inconsequential compared to the events happening in the Middle East.
My feeling, and it's very deep, is that sports and patriotism have no connection whatsoever. It's like talking about the holy and the profane. Sports is, as you said, is trivial, and that's why we need it. And what bothers me, Rick, you're younger than we are, but what bothers me, and your dad was a World War II bomber pilot, why suddenly is this war different than all our other wars?
The difference in this war from any other war is that this truly is a TV war. Vietnam, people said, well, we got this footage back in the 6 o'clock news. Well, we did. This war, we knew when it was going to start. The TV cameras were in place. People like Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney says he watches CNN to get his news. The beauty of sport is bringing together people of different cultures and different races. I mean, it was nice. It was that good gym rat experience that I love. You get out, and all of a sudden you turn on the news, and it's like the sky has fallen.
Somehow, the expression of anger coming out at the decision of this kangaroo court in the suburbs was good. Anger had to come out. And relating it to sport, I'm disappointed that not enough people in sport stood up and expressed the same feeling that many of us in other walks of life.
Just,
We're not shocked.
wait, I got to say
I
something.
heard shock from the president of the country down.
Just, I got to say one thing.
You're
You're going way too far saying this expression of anger was good. To express anger is good.
In
what
the
they
way,
did,
but Rick, in the way it is expressed, in the way Mahatma Gandhi expressed it, and Jesus Christ, and Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Non-violent.
The word that offended me is kangaroo. It was not a kangaroo court. You're a guy who believes in the rule of law.
Football players, hockey players maybe, where it's a violent game, might have a harder time turning it off when they leave the field.
You might make just the opposite case, that you get it out of your system instead of sitting behind a desk and having some pipsqueak boss jump on you all day and then going home.
This is not violence per se. This is very directed violence towards women. Now that, an aggressive sexual violence, I think that we could perhaps, if you go and look at the rapes, the sexual assaults by football players.
When Jauss was about 7 years into his career at Buffalo, he and Walter Payton were playing on the last day of the season, not against each other, but they were waging a battle for the rushing championship. We had reporters covering Payton in Chicago. I went to Buffalo, and Jauss won the championship, won the rushing championship. And afterwards, all he could talk about was Delamater and Seymour and Reggie McKenzie, the guys who blocked for him. And also, he raved over Payton, this new back. He admired Payton. Payton had the work effort. What I'm getting at, I guess, is that Jauss had this knack of saying the right thing and doing the right thing almost all his life. Now, this endeared him to a lot of people in our business. He was a good interview. He was an easy interview.
And to the fans.
And to the fans. Yeah. And that's why I think, of course, you got to question somebody who has a sign out there in the superhighway during the chase, go, go, Jauss, like it was a sports event. But I can understand why people feel this way about this man.
Watching that give and take reminds me of the poignancy of the sports writers on television. Also reminds me of a line that Bill Gleason utilized a number of years ago talking about Bill Jauss. Said Gleason, and I paraphrase, if there's no one around for Jauss to argue with, he'll do the obvious. He'll argue with himself. You know, ask any political candidate and they'll tell you. Race, drugs, they're political hot potatoes. You take a walk. How the sports writers handled such touchy topics, we'll find out next as the Sports Writers Turn 500 continues.
Like the sports writers on their 500th show. Normally I'd say I hope there's another 500, but I look at you guys, I don't think you're going to make it.
Congratulations, sports writers, on your 500th episode. We love you.
For an athlete, age, of course, can be a hindrance, but for a sports writer, it can be an asset. Two of the writers at the table, Bill Gleason and Bill Jauss, have clear recollections to a time in our nation when the games we watched were played only by athletes with white skin.
I'm willing to say that blacks today are better athletes than whites because it's obvious.
But why?
But I'm going to argue, I'll argue till midnight in this room that it has nothing to do with heredity.
I'll argue with you. Well, I'll argue on your side. I say it's environmental.
Well, and it's also effort. Nobody gives these kids credit for
working hard.
God blessed effort.
What, the most obvious question, what is a black? What is a white? If you don't define those terms, and it was only broadly brought up by Harry Edwards and I think a little bit by maybe Brokaw himself, if you don't know what a black is and you don't know exactly what you're talking about, as a very cogent point made by Edwards was that there is a tremendous intermarriage and interracial breakdown in America. No one is, and everywhere. Okay. The other question is why do you break down athletic performance by race in the first place? Now, if those two things can be addressed, and if we can go from there, then I think there is some things to be learned from this. I would like to mention that if people think this is racist just to talk about black and white, it clearly isn't, because right here, I don't know if you gentlemen are aware, but this is a daily music chart that we see, that's in the paper every week. Well, we've got top pop singles, top pop LPs, then we have black singles. Music is broken down by race. Black singles, number 2 in the black singles this week is Jody Watley and Real Love. It also happens to be number 8 in the top pop singles, which we must assume means for white people.
Radio is broken down.
Exactly. Many things are still broken down by race.
Dixie Walker, Eddie Stanky, about 5 more of these young men from the Bible Belt, they came in and issued their ultimatum. Ricky didn't do it, as I remember, but Fresco Thompson, who was Ricky's right-hand man, he called these guys into his office and he said, "Gentlemen, I'm told you don't want to play ball with Jackie Robinson. That's all right with us. You can go back down south and chop cotton." There is a word for what was done to Campanis, a word his teammate Jackie Robinson understood. Lynching, that's the word. That's how I feel about it.
Bill, I tend to agree with you and maybe not disagree. I feel that he had to be fired after what happened to him. The thing that I feel so sad about, and I watched it live as it was happening, and I remember Ted Koppel's question to Campanis, where he'd asked Campanis why there were no blacks in management positions in baseball, and Campanis had given sort of a stock answer that blacks, maybe the qualified blacks, were going on to other jobs where they felt they had a better chance. Ted Koppel, at that moment, his reporters, his instincts for going for the jugular came out at that moment, and that's where he said, that's all garbage. Let's peel this thing away. And I thought, oh no, at this moment what you're going to do is peel away a very sort of naive man. You're going to peel away his better judgment. He's going to say things I think that he's going to regret because, as you said, he's not the best spokesman for baseball. And at that moment, he hung himself, and I think that what he said, he wasn't prepared to deal with an interrogator like Ted Koppel. I think he was as embarrassing on Nightline as Ted Koppel would have been playing third base for the Dodgers. We know from simple observation there are certain things that black athletes do that white athletes don't. Larry Bird is a great basketball player. Michael Jordan is a great basketball player. They play the game on the floor. They play in as separate in the most dissimilar methods possible. I believe in my heart that there is something different about the two races. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm saying there's something different. What is wrong with that? Because we know by the very fact that we're called white and blacks are called black, we're accepting the fact we have different skin color.
Well, anthropologists are going to argue with you if you say that.
But it's the trouble that I have with this is that it's gotten to the point where we may not be able to talk about race at all. And as a journalist, a person who seeks the truth, that bothers me. That worries the hell out of me. Jimmy the Greek is stupid. He's not the kind of guy you should go to and ask questions like this of. If he does say something,
Now you're on the right track.
You should
He's
let
not
him.
the kind of a guy you go to ask.
And if you
That's
do
what
ask
I
him,
like.
let him apologize.
Yeah.
Let him say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm talking about."
Jimmy the Greek wasn't born yesterday. To me, he showed that he knows even less about anthropology than he does about sport. That's just the way I see it. I think that he fully failed to understand that the achievement of black people in sports is due to environment.
There was a time, of course, when ball clubs traveled by train. There was a time when baseball players wore flannels. There was a time when the only drug you could find in an athlete's locker was aspirin.
I was just going to say that I happen to be in favor of it, really, I do. In spite of the fact that you say this should be challenged in court.
Well, of course it should be. It's a violation of the constitutional
I think that
rights.
these are young youths, and with the drug situation that it is all over the country, and especially in sports, I'm for it.
I agree with each of you. You're right, and you're right. I think they should have the test, and somebody should challenge it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You're saying two things here. One, you want to legalize drugs. You think the problem will go away.
Ridiculous.
And
Go
two,
ahead.
you want to continue with the public service announcements.
But bring in
until we have legalization, and I don't, because the Puritan ethics still dominates this country. I think it'll be years before we have legalization of drugs. And
we have legalization of drugs now. Alcohol is legal. It's legal to smoke cigarettes.
Now we're getting
They're
off.
as bad for you.
Let's stay on the topic that he's
That is
given
the
us.
topic.
Well, we'll get into that, but
tobacco is a drug.
I want to hear your feelings now.
My feelings.
We're talking about hard drugs.
A lot of people think I'm soft on the drug issue. I'm not. Here's what I feel. It's more important to me that the guy that drives the subway train and the school teacher and the cop on the beat are straight than the left fielder being straight.
Relative to what you said about Martina Navratilova, do you apply that to Kevin Mackey? You don't care what he does off the basketball court, as long as he does a good job. You don't care what he does in the dressing room. If he hands out, let's use a coach, Coach Joe Smith, hands out stuff to his players. He's with a known prostitute. He's found. They stake out a drug house to follow him.
My answer in that case, Bill Gleason, would be he should be arrested and tried. I sat with newspaper people, and believe me, and prior to eating, we're sitting down for lunch. They start with 2 huge martinis, then lunch, then 2 more. Now, I have seen that, and they'd walk out brighter than when they came in.
Yep.
Well,
I mean, the tradition of the drinking of the drunk sports writer is a classic, and it was real. I remember talking with Don
You're
Pearson.
past tensing it, too. I remember when I first started on the night trick, I got off work at 9 o'clock in the morning, and Judd Hendry says, "Okay, kid, let's go for a beer." I thought at 9 o'clock in the morning, he said, "Kid, this is cocktail hour for us." It's a different kind of a lifestyle, and I think some of the drinking is exaggerated because of the time of the day in which it takes place.
Who was driven almost to suicide, this close to suicide, by the psychological effects of steroids. We pretty much know the physical effects of them now. And as part of his, he decided himself that as part of his way of coping, of making do the rest of his life, and I suppose a kind of catharsis, was to tell his story.
In one part of the story, you and I, right on this show, talked about the fact, is steroids addictive? At that point, you did not think it was. After reading his story, I'm firmly convinced that it is addictive, because from that, he went on to other drugs. Is that correct?
Well,
he went on to medicines I never heard of. He said he took cocaine.
Yeah.
Is that right?
This, in my opinion, is the way that this guy has his martini after playing a game. I see Robert Parrish coming home, sitting in his living room, smoking a joint, whatever, going to sleep, getting up the next day, coming to practice, doing his job, and it makes me wonder, Bill.
Let's get to the point.
Well, this is the point.
You know what you're doing?
Of course
you know what you're doing?
The point is...
You're convincing me now.
If one of you would, at least one of you would shut up, I would say
Say
it.
the word, decriminalization, okay?
See? He said it for me. Exactly.
All right.
Decriminalization.
1, 2, 3.
And
Three of us are for it.
Now, what I want to say, with our new administration...
What do you mean I don't know what it means?
Are you for it?
Am I for it?
Yeah.
I just got through telling him I might try it. He convinced me.
Who else but the irrepressible Ben Bentley would describe an individual as a young youth? Benny, the rest of the main eventers warming up in the bullpen right now. They'll join us in just a few moments. Meanwhile, what transpires when the sports writers become movie critics? We'll find out. Stay with us as we continue with a very special edition, the Sports Writers Turn 500.
To the Sports Writers on television for their 500th show. You guys are awesome.
This is Steve Stone at Wrigley Field, and Ben and the boys, I'd like to congratulate you on your 500th show. Looks like some of you are getting to be 500 years old, but what the heck? I mean, opinions are opinions. You guys certainly have them, and I, for one, appreciate what you've done all these years, and this cigar's for you guys, so puff away and have another 500.
Normally, and I use the word loosely, the sports writers on television, of course, are dealing with the games people play. But what transpires, for example, when the guys get together and begin to examine the widescreen and begin to examine motion pictures? For example, Kevin Costner and Bull Durham.
It wasn't about baseball. It was about that woman. That was the story.
Well, and that's my complaint. This had enough character in the pitcher, Nuke LaLoosh, and Crash, whatever his name was, Kevin Costner. Those two guys were riveting enough. Their relationship between each other was enough. I didn't care about these women. Plus,
Rick, you mentioned...
wait a second, Jauss. 1 second. Plus, I really think, and I hate to say this around you, Benny, but Kevin Costner, when he's on the screen, he's prettier than Susan Sarandon. I mean,
why are you afraid to tell me that? Is this the kind of a movie that would appeal to a younger generation?
Oh, absolutely. What it is, Ben, and I can't emphasize this enough, we have adopted baseball, since America is so lacking in cultural icons and in just sort of a thread that links us to our past. Everything has happened so fast. America is such a new country. It's a melting pot. Baseball is the one thing that kids can share with their fathers, and fathers can share with their grandfathers, and on and on.
I've often thought the ball is a generational symbol that goes back and forth. The actual act of throwing the ball to your dad and having your dad throw it to him, then a generation later you're throwing it to your son or to your daughter now, and it's a link. It's like there's never more togetherness. And I just wonder,
brought up a beautiful thing. You'll never know the thrill that I, as an individual, and played ball with my 6.5-year-old grandson, and out in one of your suburbs, by the way. And he was throwing the ball high, and he kept saying to me, "Throw it high." And you know I couldn't do it. And he said to me, "Did you ever play this game?"
There's a thrill.
Did you ever play this? And my question, thumbs up or thumbs down? Go.
It's the worst sport movie I ever saw, and probably the worst movie of all time.
I don't think it
Other than that.
If anyone's considering
Did
going...
you see Ishtar?
Just a minute.
Okay.
If anybody's considering going to this trashy thing, take the money you would spend for the admission, donate it to your favorite charity, or get on a bus with the money, go to the library, and read the true story.
Are you trying to imitate Gene
and read the
Siskel
true
and
story
Ebert now?
of Babe Ruth. What incensed me is the distortion of truth. The Babe Ruth was such a fascinating, electrifying story told straight that they had to exaggerate and lie.
Well,
I'm sorry.
Where did you get the information that there was lies in
Bill?
it? Where did you get the
From
information?
the start to the finish.
Bill, wait, are you saying thumbs down?
Yes, sir.
No, double thumbs down.
And how was the popcorn?
The popcorn wasn't very good either.
So just how tough is it for the modern athlete and coach to withstand the glare of the media posse, to withstand the glare of the media throng? Relationship between athletes, the press, not nearly as friendly today as it was when a Bill Gleason, a Bill Jauss, or Bill Telander first began writing. Something of an unholy alliance exists. Sports writers must criticize the games, and athletes they also promote. But over the past 500 shows, the sports writers have also turned their critical eye upon themselves and their media, brothers and their media sisters.
My question, do sports writers really ask stupid questions, and why?
That's a dumb question. It's just a setup. You're like my straight man, you know.
So he has posted about 100 of his favorite cliches right at his locker, and he invites the press to pick a few. And here are just a few of them. I couldn't have done it without my teammates. Baseball's a funny game. I'd rather be lucky than good. Here's Jeff Torborg. We're going to take the season one game at a time. You're only as good as your last game. If we stay healthy, we should be right there. We have a different hero every day. With a couple of breaks, we win this game. That all-star voting is a joke. Give the guy some credit. He hit a good pitch. And this is the one that's driven me nuts, and I've heard it here, and I want it stopped. Bertha Luther of Tucson complains of, quote, more importantly, unquote. The preferred phrase, if the construction must be used at all, is more important. Better still try, quote, of greater importance, unquote. What you're really saying...
If you get involved as a sports writer with people that you really love, people like your former football coach, Alex Agassi, people like Abe Gibran, who coached the Bears. I mean, you like somebody so much. Abe had this favorite expression. Abe would sit down and he'd say, when the first drink hits my lips, I'm off the record. Boom.
When the time comes to criticize them, you have to criticize them, and professionals understand that. I have always soft-pedaled criticism of college athletes, and I would criticize a high school athlete. I'd criticize a high school coach, and Jauss and I had running, shouting matches with Woody Hayes when he was trying to bulldoze everybody in his presence.
We're newspaper men who are moonlighting by doing a thing on television, but it's clearly uppermost in my mind that my first allegiance is to the newspaper. I'm not going to scoop myself by saying anything into a microphone. That's for the Chicago Tribune.
I think your loyalty is to your prime employer, to the newspaper. If I get a story, and one thing, our producer, and this is important to everybody out there, our producer, John Roach, has stressed that he never expects Mooshil of the AP, Jauss of the Tribune, Gleason of the Daily Southtown Economist and the South Bend Tribune to break a story here rather than in our newspaper.
So we don't have that pressure of a conflict of interest.
These guys should not have the pressure
as long
either.
As long as it's spelled out in advance, I think they can work out whatever arrangements they want, as long as it's clearly understood that one of these jobs gets first shot at any news.
Look at that heritage. Oh, my God.
Now, there's a guy who's ready. He can cover anything.
He's saving these for posterity.
This is what I hate. The new thing is these great big things. This is the Chicago White Sox. This is the NCAA tournament. This is the All-Star game at Wrigley Field in 1990. And what I don't like about these is if you write something bad about somebody and they don't like you, they can grab you and choke you around the neck.
Most of them are breakaway.
Coming up, landmark television. You haven't lived. I mean, Edward R. Murrow would be proud of this. Ben Bentley with a cigar between the lips, trying on a football helmet. You know, over the last 10 years, sports writers on TV, they've done a great deal of talking, but some of their funniest moments have come when they've actually held things in their hands. Call this segment Show and Tell. Stick around. Sports Writers continue.
TV, a happy 500th show. I think I was 12 when you started, but hey, happy 500th.
You know what? When I was born, the sports writers, they were just getting started. And I'm 40 years old. So that means the oldest guy that's in the group is about 72 years old. Now, which one is he? All you guys, happy birthday. God, 500 years? Oh, my goodness. But you know what? You look every day of it.
Sweetness, the franchise, Walter Payton. All right, show and tell time. Get close. Here we go. What transpires when Ben Bentley, boxing promoter, raconteur par excellence, models a one-piece basketball outfit, or when Ben Bentley decides to outfit himself as a deer hunter? Take a look.
I can see it. See, now here is where the air actually is inside. They cut this away.
Do I have to go to a gas station to reach?
Let me show last year's Air Jordans. Anybody?
Look, is that ugly?
This comes with red laces and black laces, depending on what gang you're in.
That's the Chicago Bulls color, right?
Okay, Ben.
Colors. Oh, Bentley. You move around so
Ben,
beautifully.
that was more exertion putting on that shoe.
Give us a high kick like the Rockettes.
It'll keep almost everything out of your eyes except cigar smoke. It's the latest thing now in the NFL.
This is really lovely.
I'd like for you to put that
yeah,
on.
I'm going to put this thing on right now.
Pull out on the ear holes. There you go.
Oh!
It's nice.
I'm looking at that world through rose-colored
Benny,
glasses.
keep it on.
Everything. Oh, this is really something.
You look like the...
There goes my cigar.
There goes
you got to play around
Bill's
with
right
me.
there. This is where I think the future, or, well, God help us, but this may be the future of basketball. This is a real Seton Hall
Is that for the male team?
This is one piece. There's the pirate right there. There's inside.
Yeah, it is.
This is for the men's team. This is not a girls' basketball thing. You can't pull your jersey out even if you wanted to. And Benny, would you?
Oh, I'd be delighted.
Like stepping into a dress.
Oh.
All right.
Help that old fella.
Okay, let's go.
This is a first baseman's mitt, gentlemen, the type that I wore when I was a youth. This is probably a Joe Strip or a Jim Bottomley model.
You can take that right into the kitchen with you to handle hot pans.
This is a Bill Doak model.
Which one?
This one.
Bill Doak. That was the biggest seller in history.
This is a Carl Furillo glove. For example, look at the comparison with a modern mitt. It's about twice the size.
Okay. Oh, it's so silky.
You like that, Ben?
Oh, Lord, I tell you what it does to
wait,
me.
you got Jauss and I are on the same team. Right. Gleason's guarding me. Bentley's guarding Jauss. I'm going to show you what the pick is. We're going to show you how it works. Okay, now I'll set the pick.
This way.
You're coming this way.
Okay, pick them off, Rick.
All right, now I picked him. Now wait there, Benny. Don't push
You're good. Now I can go.
Now I got him on my back. Oh, Tom.
No, that's...
I go right to the hole and
keep going, Jauss.
Picks me up.
Keep going.
It's going to pick me up now.
And then
I get it to the open man.
And you know what? He fouled me.
Yeah, well,
I've been fouled. Yes, that's a foul.
Now here's another one I want to show. This is how you can buy them now. This is Topps baseball cards, $2.49. Cubs. I mean, nothing but Cubs. Just Chicago Cubs. Now, doesn't that seem like cheating a little bit to you guys?
Yeah, you should have to buy 500 cards to get your team.
Let's see. You got the cotton panels caught around your heel.
What
there you
a
go.
trainer you make. By the time you got the player's uniform on, the game will be over.
Hey, how many times do you think I wore a hunter's outfit?
How many have you?
How many times have you been hunting?
All right, and
never.
You never been hunting?
Never been hunting, huh?
Me either.
Here, we're almost to the best part, Ben.
Wait a minute.
Hey,
I gotta get my
turkey waddle hanging out.
I look like I'm ready to hold up a bank. If you could afford gauze, if you had a manager or trainer that could afford gauze, you were recognized as a comer. May I use that term?
Yeah. Sure, Ben. Now, would you share your gauze with somebody else?
Yeah. Okay. Now, Benny, before I tape you, how does this feel?
Oh, this feels great.
Are you
Do that one more time, I'm taking a shot at you.
Come on, Ben. You're on your own now.
Don't squirm, Ben. Look out. Don't fall.
I'm not falling. I'm trying to put this on the right way.
You should have taken... Oh, you did take your shoes off.
I sure did.
It's a wraparound. You got peripheral vision, Rick.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can go post up against the Bulls and score all kinds
Now,
of...
what do you think? If you're looking straight ahead, can you see Ben okay?
Sure.
Can you see Gleason all right?
I wear them, gentlemen. I wear them for
I feel like I'm sitting next to the Fly. He's on it with his
Don't
grandma.
do that. You tickle my toes.
Well,
Don't do that.
That's Bill. The beauty of the wiffle ball is that the guy who invented it realized that if you made one side with those holes in it like that, that you can make it do all sorts of things. And you can, if you throw this right, you can get it to rise about 2 feet.
Now,
Did you take you this long to get your bathing trunks on?
No.
Come on.
Ben is just back from Florida with a beautiful tan, too. Look at this.
I'd help you, but this is starting to get
Seton Hall's got to be at your chest, Bentley, not at your waist.
What they ought to do if they're smart is put this game in the Olympics.
To all you people in the cellar that aren't from Chicago, this ball is peculiar only to Chicago.
Yes, peculiar, all right.
16-inch slow-pitch softball.
Without gloves, please.
Freelance,
And
without gloves.
They're all different.
Well, like the ones you have, Ben, are good for like shooting and for sort of
shooting.
Walking the street.
Let me take it.
Now, Jauss is like the human fly look.
Can I pull him up? Yeah, that's a thought. All the way up.
Well, those trunks up, Ben. Would you go out there looking like...
taken your
now,
wallet
sure,
out.
Michael Jordan wears his pants long. But...
Okay.
I know when you played at the when you played at the BBR bench, you had to keep your wallet.
I got him up.
You think you look like a male model, for God's sake?
Yes, he is.
Jauss looks like a guy who just went 15 rounds with Rocky.
Yours is too high, Bill.
It works, though. I feel that oxygen.
No, I'm going to tell you, it pulls something or other.
It's all psychological.
Pulls your nostrils out, that's all.
I'm sleeping with this tonight.
This is nuts.
Yeah.
I don't care what the guy wears under his helmet. They wear it, as you know, you two guys who played a lot of football, they wear it for comfort, to stop the abrasiveness.
But Josh, you do know that there are places where you can't wear the caps, you can't wear the colors of NFL. God, Ben, I'm sorry.
Sure, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do then?
If I saw you on a galleon, walk the plank, mate.
Well, I'll be sure not to worry again because I don't want to break you up.
That would hurt you if you slid in on that file.
So we are telling our audience to, if you're going to do this, to use the scuff ball, not the Vaseline or the KY jelly.
Josh, either one. The grease ball.
Yes.
You could, let me see that. The catcher could wipe that off real quickly before he hands it. You know, the umpire says, let me see that ball.
Yeah, you just wipe it off.
Drop it in the dirt.
You destroyed this ball. That scuff right there.
That's the point.
That's the point.
In the
Yeah, but
days,
any umpire's going to see that.
Then you'll replace it.
How did it feel in the leg? My legs are all right, but I feel a little tight around the crotch.
hey, the way you got that, that's how the original women Olympic athletes, they expose one.
Oh, Rick.
Yeah.
This is
Hey,
marvelous.
could you hit the three-pointer?
You know, we could run the highlights for 2 weeks, but next up, main event time. We bring out the sports writers to do what they do best, to do what they do unlike anyone else. It may be the first time in my career, first time in this business, that I won't be able to get a word in edgewise. That alone should keep you watching as the Sports Writers Turn 500 continues. I know Ben Bentley. I just trust that Ben Bentley is going to be gentle on me.
To Ben and Moosh. Oh, wait a minute. Those guys aren't there anymore. Sorry. Once in a while, Moosh, I guess you're there. Hey, all kidding aside, to Lester Munson, Rick Telander. Rick, they're starting to age you a little bit. Bill Jauss. Hey, Jauss, there's a new thing called cottage cheese. Starting to put on a little bit over there as far as I'm concerned. And my grandpappy, Bill Gleason, happy 500th.
Hey, guys, happy 500th. And by the way, Bill Gleason is bigger than David Anderson. Congratulations, guys.
Feel like I'm occupying the Oval Office. I gotta tell you, this is a genuine treat. Let's bring out the main eventers right now. Let's bring out the television sports writers. First of all, a man who personified football excellence during his playing days over at Dyke Stadium as a member of the Northwestern Wildcats, longtime writer with Sports Illustrated, now, of course, a veteran columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Let's have a big Chicago round of applause for Rick Telander. Rick, how many hairstyles over the years, by the way?
Many, Chet, but at least I got hair.
That's a very good point. Also a man who played college football at Northwestern, longtime writer with the Chicago Daily News and the Chicago Today. He has spent nearly 2 decades now with the Chicago Tribune. College football, of course, the name of the game when you talk about this man. We welcome the argument himself, the living, breathing discourse, Bill Jauss. Come on, Rick. Up here. Up there. I grew up reading this man in the old Chicago American. He is in some respects the conscience of sports in the city of Chicago. The man with the cigar, one of many individuals who utilized the stogie on this particular program. Let's welcome from the Southtown Economist and the South Bend Tribune, ladies and gentlemen, there is only one, Bill Gleason.
Gee, it's good to see you again.
Glad you're here.
Bill,
Bill is my car ready. And what would this program have been without the presence of this very unique man? A man who can speak with great expertise about Dempsey, about Tunney, about Lewis, about Schmeling, about Marciano, about Walcott, about Tyson, about Douglas. We welcome the original moderator of the Sports Writers on Television, ladies and gentlemen, the irrepressible Ben Bentley.
Hey, hey!
Come on up here, Ben.
Happy.
All right. The big gloves. The Godfather. The king of them all.
How are you, pal? Gleason, how does this show work? You break all the rules. There's no anchorman who tosses to a very pert weathercaster. There are no graphics. There's no videotape. Explain why this program works.
Because this is the most famous ensemble in the history of TV. We play off one another. Sometimes we play to one another, and we like one another.
He talks. He knows what he's talking.
Chet, where else are you going to see hats like this?
Well, now that I'm a New Yorker, occasionally on 8th Avenue.
This is a Churchill, gentlemen. A Churchill.
Worn by the man himself, no doubt.
Chet, we were in the control room watching the first few segments that you narrated, and I heard all that television talk going on around me and decided to block it out. Because to answer your question, we're not a TV show. I don't know where the cameras are located.
Well, you're not a TV animal, but for example, when you walk into airports and you're 1,000 miles away from Chicago, what do you feel like when you...
It's hard to register as Mr. and Mrs. John Doe.
When you all of a sudden get hit with the autograph seekers.
You sign them.
No, they don't want autographs. They want tips. They want tips. They want to know the betting line. How about? Here's the best one. How do you think the Cubs are going to do this year?
There.
The same as they did the last 87 years.
How about the Cubs? How about the Sox?
Chet, the question people always ask me about Jauss is, what beer does he drink?
Anything that's cheap.
Anything we can find. Sunday night was a dry night, Rick.
Yeah, that was bad. We were in Detroit together, Chet, and we get back to the hotel after the Detroit Lions Chicago Bears game, and there's no bars open anywhere. And it was a very frightening thing. We thought about getting on a plane if there'd been any, flying to another time zone. We could have found something that was open.
Is that how much you needed to have?
I don't know. I don't want to say needed, Ben. I thought.
Well, it sounds the way you're talking.
At that point of the day, Ben, at covering football, you do need a beer. At least 6 or 7.
I'm a novice.
Here's the other thing, Chet. I don't believe anybody's ever used an iota of makeup when we've come on here, and that...
There had to be a first.
No, well, we apologize to all the viewers for these many years that had to see such things as Jauss coming on with 8 stitches sticking out of his head. And I remember Roach, the producer, said after that one, Jauss, I'm sure you'll concur with this. He said, if you ever come in with stitches in your head again, wear a stocking cap.
How much did your life change when a columnist down on the West Coast about 5-6 years ago called you a sex symbol?
Oh, boy, do I remember that. Never got a call.
On TV show? Tell you what, you guys are getting old, but the shows are getting better. Congratulations on 500 great shows. I look forward to 500 more.
I just want to congratulate all of you on your 500th show. It's unbelievable that you've lasted this long. I've watched that show. I cannot stand it, and I don't know how you guys are doing it, but congratulations.
The 500th tour of duty continues here on the Sports Writers as we welcome the fifth horseman. Tremendous off-the-bench player, outstanding relief pitcher, 38 years with the Associated Press. Gentlemen, would you put the hands together, please, for our dear friend Joe Mooshil.
Thank you, gentlemen. Greatest hair in the business, Joe. God, am I envious.
Joe, you look like Little Richard.
Oh.
I'm a virgin. How do you go about properly lighting a cigar?
Put that word. Go ahead.
Chet, the first thing you do is you get the clipper and you clip the head of the cigar off, like that. You got that, Rick?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
What do you do about your finger? There we go.
Don't get you. Keep your finger out of it. Then there's a special way of lighting a cigar.
Close cover before scratching.
Forget about that. What you do is you know that? You never bring the match to the cigar against it. You keep it away, and then you draw on it. See?
I've learned something.
You turn your cigar. Is that what you're doing, Joe?
Can we see this again in instant replay?
You have to singe the outside.
You know, most women in America know
You're
how to
going to burn your fingers.
Ouch.
And
Which
now
reminds
you
me-
puff and enjoy it. And the beautiful thing about cigars these days is women are starting to smoke them.
And how?
And my daughter the other day came out. I usually have my cigar and my drink out in the yard. She came out with a little glass of wine and a cigar, and she says, "Dad, give me a light."
That's a beautiful thing. Women are starting to get heart attacks now, too.
For those of you who wonder why I'm not holding one or smoking one, it's because somebody has to be the role model for the boys and girls.
Brother.
This is the role model for this table?
Well,
what it's come
just
to.
goes to show you what this show is going to come to.
Chester, all the cigars remind me of the historic day when Mr. Bentley's cigar set fire to this table.
To this cloth.
Leaping flames.
You remember
and
that
Ben was
incident?
trying to quench the flames, and he was rather hysterical for a while.
He's a good firefighter. He extinguished it with coffee.
Bill,
Yes, he did.
are there ever days when you have closed a program hating Jauss's guts?
No. I see, as you know, Chet, from the olden days, when you were a youth, Bill and I spent a lot of time on the beat together, especially covering college football. And he is just the same then as he is here. Bill Jauss never changed his temperament. He's always angry about something. And when we're out on the beat, he would tell off coaches, he would tell off officials, and he'd tell off Woody Hayes. Who was the other guy we loved? Bobby Knight. We'd sit on opposite sides of the press conference room, and we'd volleyball Bobby Knight. And
he loves it.
Yes, he did.
Well, Jauss is a very good friend of Bob Knight.
You know, the main thing on my mind right now is this cigar. And Joe, I'd like to ask you, what do you do about the taste that's now in my mouth, for instance?
Like taste, it's a beauty. This is a delicious
Well,
cigar.
it's going to have to be sandpaper.
No. You've got to enjoy the cigar.
You know, when the Bulls won the
championship,
championship,
a little bit, and then you enjoy it.
Are there any press box rights left for cigar smokers?
Well, the last time in Soldier Field, they told me in the press box, they said that there's cigar smoking only in certain areas. I says, well, right here is one area, and I continue to smoke.
What happens if they have a removable dome and the dome is open? That makes it outdoors. Then
they don't allow it. In Wrigley Field, they don't allow it.
The Bulls were smoking so many cigars that in Seattle, the fire alarm went off in their hotel. Jordan is smoking them now. Reinsdorf smokes like crazy. Even Phil Jackson. Now, what's happening to our society?
Why?
Why? Because it's
collapsing.
Jerry Reinsdorf is...
You know, Jauss is so healthy.
Remember you haven't had here.
You know how healthy? I think I'll go Jules now.
You remember how...
And we wish we had your money. Hi, guys. Steve Dahl from WCKG here. Afternoons, 2 to 6. Congratulations on 500 episodes, or whatever you call them, shows. And you should be very proud of that. I think you should be the most proud of the fact that you've kept John Roach behind the scenes for 500 shows.
And now he's going to come on camera. No build-up required. The Sportswriters 500th edition continues. A man who attended Princeton, graduated from the law school over at the University of Chicago, former lawyer with the National Sports Daily, now is Sports Illustrated associate editor. Let's welcome the newest member of the Sports Writers on Television, Mr. Lester Munson, gentlemen.
Can you be a former lawyer?
No, once a lawyer.
Once a lawyer, always a lawyer.
I'm like being an alcoholic.
I'm still a lawyer, but I'm a recovering lawyer. I'm getting better each day.
Like an ex-felon.
Yeah. Well, and hanging around with people like this, I am getting better each day. There's no question about it.
How did you guys get Solozzi Edelson to hop on this program?
I think we must have talked to their lawyer.
If I may interrupt for a moment, I want everyone out there in those 42 million homes all across this country out to Hawaii. There's the man responsible for this. Blame him. That's Jim Corno, the big boss here at Sports Channel, and he's put up with us for 500 shows. And I also, on
Let's give him a hand, will you?
Thanks very much. And then, on behalf of everybody, two fellas to whom we owe a big thank you, Greg Novak, who helped us get on TV, and Dirk Zimmerman, who originally put us on TV.
Yes. Does anybody else feel like they're sitting in a flock of penguins?
I do.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, Munson, what did you think of us? Now, be honest. You're a lawyer.
It's going to be hard for me, yeah.
Seriously, what did you think of us?
Would you like a delay?
What did you think of us before you joined us? Be honest now.
I used to listen to you guys when you were on the radio before you started this 500 series. I would make arrangements to be in my car so that I could listen to it on the radio uninterrupted. That's how much I thought of the show. Then when you came on television, sometimes it was too late at night, and so I missed the last few segments of the show.
When you were in your car, you were ambulance chasing, right?
Passing out business cards?
Not all the time. Not all the time. But I can't believe I'm on this show. I heard with credentials like mine.
We can't believe it either.
Yeah, what am I doing here with you? I really don't know what I have to add. I love every minute of it.
Hey, why has it become so fashionable, Telander, for athletes here in the 1990s to issue the following? No comment. I ain't talking.
I think because there's writers like me trying to get them in a hole all the time. That's the problem.
Yeah, writers like Lester will answer for them. As he just answered for
Right.
I don't know. I think they don't like being scrutinized the way they're being scrutinized, and it's hard, and a lot of them are ill-prepared. You know, you got a lot of athletes in the NFL and NBA that, God, they're almost teenagers. Well, they are teenagers. They got kids coming straight out of high school. It's very hard for them. They're not professional speakers, as
but one
Mike
of them,
Lord.
Yeah, but every now and then you get one. You get a Tiger Woods that comes along. He's 20 years old, and isn't he beautiful?
And what about
burn out by the time he's 25?
No what about an entire team of those individuals? That was the Northwestern team that went to the Rose Bowl last year. Was comprised of quote machines. Darnell Autry, Rob Johnson.
Yeah, but you have to remember that
they went to Northwestern.
Through their career prior to last year, nobody ever asked them a question.
Well, that's another thing. If you interview offensive linemen, you always get good interviews because they're never interviewed and they walk around thinking of what they're going to say if asked.
Hey, gents, you know, we have at the start of our show that typewriter typing, which I love.
That's my typewriter.
And that's magnificent. That's how things used to be done. I wanted to show something that we'll all appreciate, because with this thing started at the beginning of the computer era, of the portable computer era. The laptop. Now, this is the first one that I got. I thought I'd bring it in here for a little show and tell. This is called the portable. Now, this is what we took. We all had it. This is what we used to take to sporting events and type on. This is the first thing. And you see on top here? You had to stick a phone in there. And it had a little screen where, right, I can't even see, right?
And loud noise could screw it up.
And the reason it's so big, inside there was a fan to cool it, because it's like a small jet engine powering this thing. So we've come a long ways from that.
Jerome Holtzman of the Sun-Times has collected those. He has about 30 porta-bubbles.
What we give for mine? We can talk.
What does he do? Does he plant plants in them and let them grow out of the
No, he knows that someday those parts are going to be needed.
One time the Ohio State band came on the field and started playing, and my story went off into the ether somewhere.
Well, at the state tournament,
I called the office, and they said, take your overcoat and put it
at the state tournament, you didn't have it. Was it that bad?
The ether somewhere.
Well,
right now. No, not
Calendar. You wrote about the Bears the other day. Back to business. What disturbs you or disappoints you about Dave Wannstedt right now?
The fact that he speaks with a Pittsburgh accent. What's wrong? I don't know. He's a man under a little duress right now. But, you know, that's...
how about this?
See how he weathers
players continue to make stupid mistakes over and over again.
But don't you go to the top for that?
No, you go, that's coaching. That's coaching. If a man jumps offside, a defensive lineman, repeatedly, you get 5 cents worth of cotton, stuff it in his ears, and he'll stop jumping off sides.
What about the fact that he just is not picking very good players? He's had all these drafts, and he has nothing to show for it.
The reason for that is they pick athletes.
That wasn't bad.
That was bad. Wait, why are you blowing at me?
You represent all the lawyers that always kid me dirty.
Chester, they draft people who can run fast and lift weights and have vertical jumps, and they can't play football.
And they're only 21 years old.
May I interject a moment here of not solemnity, but celebration? On this, the 500th occasion.
You're going to pound down that whole bottle?
Get him a straw.
Not until I get back on the plane.
He's taking part of it with him.
Yeah, I want to salute Bill, Rick, Lester, Benny, Joseph, Bill. 500 shows. I want to salute you guys for busting all the rules, beating the posse, getting away with it, and turning out the best show on television today.
Here.
Drink hard.
I drink to that.
Let me blow one of these things out of here.
You got to watch this now.
Are you going to aim that at me, too?
I've been in a lot of championship
It's not
locker rooms.
Perignon.
I'm going to pour it all over you guys. You know that.
Here it comes.
Jauss and I don't believe in shit.
Yes!
Bingo.
That got the light.
There we go.
Oh, so Gleason gets it.
No, he missed it.
Gleason gets it. Gleason gets it.
No, I want that part of you pouring.
Bill, was that hat due back by 4 o'clock?
No, this belongs to me. $75 worth. It's a great hat.
And you
What's
got a
it
great
called?
deal on it.
It's a Churchill.
It's a Churchill? Like a
no,
cigar?
It's a Churchill.
It's like the Winston himself.
Like
This
Winston.
is what
Well, Winston was a great cigar man.
Looks a little
Remember
bit
that.
like Winston.
And was telling
And a
Rick
great
before
writer.
the show, Chet, that what I was thinking about just this morning as I was driving here for our marathon session, our marathon 500, was what does Onstead right at this moment think of his personnel? Actually, sincerely think of his personnel.
Not happy.
He says they're young
can
and
he
they're
not
going to make
happy?
mistakes.
Hey, he'd fire the bums if he could, but he
Well,
can't.
he's got a lot
stuck with
of,
him.
he has
He
a lot
picked
of injuries. You have to admit that.
Well, we've had injuries here,
So does
right here at this table. There have been numerous injuries.
lot
Why
of
is Eric
football
Kramer in the ozone? What happened to 29 touchdown passes a year ago?
What happened to the best receiver that they had last year? He's gone. He's in New York.
Wonder
now.
this Saturday where he's really going to hell in
And they're
bed.
not doing any good there either.
So, Josh, let me ask you this, since we're talking about free agency. If you got a real big offer from another city, another show, would you go?
No, not unless I could bring you guys along, and not unless the city were Milwaukee.
Wow.
Because Milwaukee's the
Atlantic
only
time?
city I like almost as much
What a
as
loyal
Chicago.
guy.
He might not
Only
have
because there's beer there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you know, there's some athletes who've gone for the money. But Josh was sticker. You'd go for the beer, though.
He'd go for the beer.
No, that's why I say Milwaukee.
And they're low attendance.
You gotta get rid of Bevington, but Lasorda's not the right guy.
This is a secret conversation.
What's this Lasorda
We're not
bit?
privy to that.
Talking it over. The two of them are talking it over. Mr. Bentley's running his own show, as he always did.
You know how much I like show and tell.
Yes.
How do you do things when you got one of these in your hand all the
You
time, Bill?
stick it in your mouth.
Okay.
Now use your hand.
Now you got to talk.
This is how things have changed.
He's trying to talk with
Now, in the
us.
past, this is how you write a book. This is how I wrote my first book. 663 pages, handwritten.
Didn't typewriter?
I didn't know how to do it.
What do you do? You keep
Now,
pages?
here,
Written on legal pads, by the way.
Here's my last book. Just finished last night. Here it is.
How many pages?
Yeah, more than this.
But what if you lose then?
You do another one. But in time, it's going to be this big.
I know, but I'd be scared if I didn't have the hard copy.
What does the future? What does the future hold? What is the next book?
Let me answer
10
that.
years from now.
Oh, I'll tell you what the future holds: an enormous explosion in participation and achievement by female athletes.
What more can they do?
Television won't buy into it.
Oh, I don't care. We're going to see in track and field, softball, volleyball, all the sports, we're going to see records broken. You wouldn't believe this. Just now, we're starting to get the second generation of female athletes through Title IX. And it's going to be enormous. They're no longer pioneers.
Yes, but there's not going to be any room for them on television. Television is filled up with shows like this and
And
the
they don't
men's
pull numbers.
sports,
They
and
don't
they don't
pull
pull the
ratings.
numbers. And if
Volleyball will.
if you don't have the volleyball will if you put it on the beach and they wear those short little swimsuits.
They're called bikinis, Joe.
Bikinis.
They've been around for about 60 years.
Well, that's before my time.
I know.
The other thing we're going to see is teams moving the way players are moving now. There's going to be big stadium deals. Teams are going to move around.